Good evening, folks, and welcome back to Wilderness Wargaming. Tonight, we're going to take a look at the data sheets that we haven't seen so far in the Leviathan box set, which is about ready to go on pre-order. And I'm going to warn you in advance, I am not happy with several of the Space Marine data sheets. So stick around and let's get into it. We have the Captain in Terminator armor. He has all the normal weapon options you would expect from a Terminator Captain. Nothing here. This is shock. Terminators go up to toughness 5. And he does give reroll charges to the unit that he's the leader of. He also can be targeted by a stratagem once per battle round for 0 CP. Nothing here terribly shocking, and this is actually good. The reroll charges and the 0 CP. This is one of the better units. The Relic Shield, which I guess is the thing that's going to replace Storm Shields now because he's a native 4-up invuln. It just gives him an extra wound. And he has no surprises down here in the Warrior model, so that's fine off the bat. The Librarian here, combi weapons, force weapon for the ranged and the melee, and I think we've already taken a look at Smite, so no big changes there either. Oath of Moment. This guy's cool. He's probably the coolest model in the box with the way they've painted him, at least. But I don't think I have the skill to duplicate that glow effect. But no big surprise there. Both him and the Captain can lead Terminator squads of all types. Then we get down here to the Infernus squad. So this is the first disappointment. The Infernus squad is really just a squad loaded up with a bunch of flamethrowers that causes battle shock. And their flamethrowers, pyroblasters, have 1 more strength than a regular flamer. So slight improvement, but I don't see what these guys do except maybe be a cheaper version of aggressors. I think I'll stick, maybe slightly faster because they move 6 inches, but I think I'll stick with aggressors. I don't quite see why these guys were needed, especially since we don't have battlefield roles anymore. If we were using org charts and these guys were a troops unit, yeah, I could see that, but don't see it. They're not bad, but I just don't see the use. Now, down here, Stern Guards. Okay, this is where things go off the rails. Okay, so the Stern Guard stat line is just what you'd expect from before. They can shoot again once per battle when they destroy a unit, which is good. That's pretty handy, although it's conditioned on them being the ones to destroy units. So you're going to have to probably make sure that it's either an easy unit for them to destroy, or you're going to have to use them to finish off something that's been weakened to be sure you get that. So it's going to take a little bit of clever play. But looking over here, we see danger on the left. It's only bolt weapons and heavy bolters in close combat. And when we scroll down here, sure, yep. Sure enough, you're stuck with combi weapons and a heavy bolter. Okay, and I'm going to say it right now. This is just bullshit. This is absolute bullshit from Games Workshop, and it's probably the first thing I've seen in the 10th edition so far that really just makes me say, you guys got this wrong, and you probably need to fix it. Which you won't, but that's what I would tell them if they were giving me a briefing on this. So these knuckleheads decided it was a good idea with a box set that normally comes with a whole variety of heavy weapons, and which the default heavy was always a flamer, and in which the squads could usually have 2 heavy weapons in a 5-man squad, to cut it down to 1 and limit it to only the heavy bolter. Well, mine have grav cannons and multi-meltas on them, so I don't know what I'm supposed to do with them now. I guess they're going to have to become one of the innumerable varieties of Devastator you can field. I'm going to assume that Devastators still have the same variety they always did, but this is pretty horrendous. That's a terrible idea, guys, and you shouldn't have done it. The Ballistus Dreadnought, I talked about in a previous video. This is not one it's a good unit, but not one I would want to have because I don't really want a Dreadnought to be a long shooter, and if I do, I'll just use a cheaper Venerable Dreadnought, which hopefully will retain the 2-up ballistic skill. But the model's pretty alright. It's definitely a worthy successor to the old one, and the improved missile launcher, which gets more shots now, is a big improvement to the biggest problem with the Devastator-ish version of the Dreadnought. And then moving down here, the Terminator squad, absolutely nothing here really changes from the current edition, which is good, although the new models look nice. Now here's the second thing, the Lieutenant with combi weapon. Okay, so he has a combi weapon, which we've looked at several times before. It's basically become an anti-infantry gun. Paired combat blades, which gives him a lot of attacks. Now this is the second problem. Anti-Tyranids 4, sustained hits 1. Okay, I get that this is your flagship launch box, and you want people to play Tyranids against Space Marines in this. And for some reason, it's always the Ultramarines fighting Tyranids. But everybody isn't playing Ultramarines, and they aren't always fighting Tyranids. So why would this guy be carrying paired combat plays that have been a long time Phobos combat weapon, and it be an anti-Tyranid weapon? What is that nonsense? That's a lot more minor than the Stern Guard, but it's still very, very irritating, and I'm already not happy to see that data sheet. The other stuff here is pretty cool. You can select a priority objective that will give wound rerolls to anybody who's within range of it, and you can move him around. You can take a normal move if an enemy unit ends within 9 inches of him, as long as he's not in engagement range. So that could be very, very handy. He has no meaningful war gear options, and he cannot be your warlord at all for some reason. Okay, and then we have the Apothecary Ballogus. This guy is the new Scientist Apothecary. He is kind of interesting. He's in Gravis armor, and he's up to toughness 6, which is impressive. He has the Absolver Bolt Pistol, which isn't really changed from its current iteration. It's a decent pistol. And he has a close combat weapon, so he's no melee monster, probably because he's lugging around that big jug of Xenos material. And other than that, what he does do is give whatever unit he's leading the lethal hits ability. Now that's very, very handy if you put him with an Eradicator squad, which he can lead, or heavy intercessors. Less useful with aggressors because they don't have to make hit rolls. Okay, and you can attach him even if... he also, if he destroys an enemy unit with a melee attack, then, or his unit does, he gets an objective control characteristic of 9. You can attach him to basically a Gravis armor squads. Aggressors, Eradicators, or heavy intercessors. Not Inceptors, of course, because they fly, and he doesn't. And you can attach him to the same unit that you already have a captain or a chapter master with. Okay, which kind of makes sense. So that's everything for the Space Marines. He is pretty cool. The new captain and librarian are pretty cool, but I don't care too much about the Infernus guys or the Dreadnought, and I am not happy with the Lieutenant or definitely with the Stern Guard. So big disappointments right there. Looking at the Tyranids real quick, Ripper Swarms. These are little tiny units that I'm not sure exactly what they do, but they seem to reduce enemy objective control. I think they're supposed to accompany other units in some way, but I'm not too familiar with Tyranids rules. They're melee only. The Screamer Killer is about what we'd expect. Move 8, toughness 9, save 2, wounds 10, leadership 8, objective control 3. He has a Bioplasmic Scream, which is an assault blast weapon, 18-inch range, and it's a good general purpose anti-infantry and maybe light vehicles weapon, and Screamer Killer Talents. This is where it's at. 10 attack, weapon skill 3, strength 10, AP minus 2, damage 3, which is just what we would expect from a Tyranid monster like this. And in your shooting phase, he can cause an opponent hit by a Bioplasmic Scream to take a battle shock test at -1. Quite good. No war gear options. The Psychophage, this thing is not as bad as I would have thought. Movement 8, toughness 9, save 3, 10 wounds, leadership 8, objective control 3. Basically has a psychic flamethrower attack. It's similar to a Ministorum Heavy Flamer, and pretty not too terrifying melee, really, for a Tyranid, except that it is anti-Psyker 2 and has devastating wounds. So threat may be a little bit stronger than the stat line over here would indicate. It also has a Feel No Pain of 5, and it gives Tyranids within 6 inches Feel No Pain 6. And it gets +1 to hit if you're below starting strength, and +1 to wound if you're below half starting strength. No warrior options again. Barb Gaunts, these are long-range shooters. The bio cannon is not particularly destructive, and the melee is not that impressive, but what we have over here is this disruption bombardment that if you hit, all you have to do is hit. They don't have to take a battle shock or anything. It subtracts you from movements, advances, and charges. So that's if you're advancing, that's a total of -4. And -2 on charges. Those are very, very handy, and I think any Tyranid player would want them in his army because that's clearly a very useful feature to have. Termagants, we looked at these guys in a previous video. Pretty typical light infantry unit. The Neurotyrant, this is, I think, supposed to be the new warlord. Movement 6, toughness 8, save 4, wounds 9, leadership 7, objective control 3, psychic scream is the weapon. This is an 18-inch range, 2d6 attack, strength 5, AP minus 1, damage 2. So again, a fairly general purpose anti-infantry attack. This one will be less useful against vehicles because strength's pretty low, although it's a lot of attacks. And then in melee, Neurotyrant Claws, attack 6, wounds, weapon skill 3, strength 5, AP 0, damage minus 1. And it has 2 different psychic abilities here. It can add +1 to hit when it's leading a unit, and +1 to wound if the target is battle shocked. It applies a -1 to the battle shock test for Shadow in the Warp if you unleash it with one of these on the field, and you can give Synaptic Relay to 2 friendly Tyranids units within 12 inches of the model, and they are always considered to be within Synapse. So you can synapse them and then send them out on their own to do their thing. And it has a 4-up invulnerable save. Next up, no warrior options. Von Ryan's Leapers, these are 10-inch moves, toughness 5, save 4, wounds 3, leadership 8, objective control 1. And they have only Leapers talents, which are 6 attack, weapon skill 3, strength 5, AP minus 1, damage 1. So the damage is low, but otherwise a pretty impressive melee profile, and they can infiltrate, and they are hard to shoot because they are stealthy. You can also use Heroic Intervention on them for 0 CP. And they have a 6-up interval. So these guys are a long threat range. 10-inch move with infiltrators means they're probably a threat of a turn 1 charge. No war gear option. 3 to 6 of them in a unit. So if you had 6 times 6, that's 36 melee attacks. That's a lot. Neurogots, these are again pretty small little light infantry types. They just have basically a close combat weapon, and that's all they really do, except that they also act as like a synapse booster. They have to be within synapse of a synapse creature, but then they can boost it out from them. They can't do it all by themselves, but I see that's very handy. They can also take along Neurogaunt Node Beasts, whatever those are, which I don't think is very clear from up here. But you have to have 20 of them to take 2. And finally, we have the Winged Tyranid Prime. This is, I thought this was supposed to be like a Warlord, but it's actually more of an upgraded Tyranid Warrior or Gargoyle. 12-inch move, toughness 5, save 4, wounds 6, leadership 7. So not the strongest defensive profile I've ever seen, especially with no invulnerable save. It has only melee, 6 attack, weapon skill 2, which is quite good, strength 6, AP minus 1, damage 2. Alpha Warrior, so it will give its units leading sustained hits 1, and it can fight on death on a 4-up. And it can lead gargoyles or Tyranid warriors. So that's basically a leader unit that's intended to lead those into combat. It is not the warlord that I initially thought it might be. So anyhow, that's all I have. I'm not going to go. The core rules are available for download, but I'm not going to go over them again because I already went over them in the leak video. Although I may pick a few selected sections to talk about. But that's the final assessment. Is the Space Marines are overall a thumbs down, with a few units that are looking good and are exception, most of the characters. And the Tyranids overall, I feel like they probably scored a hit. Now, I'm not a Tyranids player, but looking at it from someone who has never really played against Tyranids, I don't see anything in there that makes me think, oh my gosh, Tyranids are just impossible to deal with. I think they look pretty balanced. And even overall, I don't think this ruins the Space Marines or anything like that. It's only one type of unit, Stern Guard veterans, and one particular type of lieutenant. And God knows we have more than enough kinds of lieutenant. So hardly the end of the world for the Space Marines as an army. But I do think this means that my plan not to purchase this box set, which I already didn't plan on getting, is definitely affirmed. I think I have made the right decision in that regard, because I just don't see it being a worthwhile addition for me personally, but it may be for you. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below, and click the notifications bell for more great content for Wilderness Wargaming, and we'll be back with you very soon.